Hi, I'm Hannah, and I'm the face behind Crusty Cravings. I share tips, tricks, recipes, and advice on sourdough making. This is me showing up authentically today, dark circles, messy hair, baby, and all. I have a 4-month-old who's teething, and he only wants to sleep on me, and that's okay. I want this environment and this space, this channel, to be a place where I can show up authentically, be real with you, show you real life, because not everybody's put together all the time. My kitchen isn't always going to look beautiful. I'm not always going to have the perfectly edited video. I'm not always going to have pretty makeup on. I'm going to look a little ratchet sometimes, and that's okay. I want this channel to be a place where beginners that are wanting to get into sourdough can turn to for advice, recipes, different tips and tricks that will prevent you from making the mistakes I made when I first started my journey. Today I wanted to share a little bit about my heart behind the channel, why I created this space, and ultimately my journey, what got me into it, and what I hope to achieve with this channel and my goal. Ultimately, I created this channel for anyone wanting to get into sourdough baking. But more specifically, I want to inspire working moms who feel like this isn't for them, that sourdough making is something that's too time consuming, it's not practical, it just isn't feasible with a busy schedule. And as a working mom of 2 boys, it's just simply not true. Anybody can get into sourdough making. You can put as much time and as little time as you want into it. Sourdough starter is very forgiving, and it's not high maintenance. I think a lot of people on social media overcomplicate it and make it seem like it's this daunting task that nobody can do. And that's not true. Anybody can do sourdough. It's 4 ingredients. It's sourdough starter, salt, water, and flour, and a little bit of time and patience. My love for baking was established at a very young age. Some of my core memories are of me baking cookies with my grandma every time I'd go to visit her, baking pies with my Nana for Thanksgiving, and even making homemade wheat bread with my mom. Those are just super special for me because I can taste those tastes. I can smell those smells still. They're just, part, like I said, of my core memories. I actually took a cake decorating and baking class in 8th grade, and I was super passionate about it. For a while, I was a young entrepreneur, and I actually sold a lot of my cakes to my neighbors, my friends, my family, and of course I was in charge of making cakes for every single birthday in our family. But I loved it, and I had dreams to open a bakery one day or open my own coffee shop and sell my baked goods. Definitely always been in the back of my mind. I would love to sell my sourdough in the future, to own my own coffee shop, and to incorporate my baked goods somehow. And then in college, I actually worked in a bakery for a little while, in a very small boutique / bakery. I made cake pops and a cupcake flavor of the week, and I even made a few cakes too. So I've always loved it. It's just always been a part of my life, and it just keeps coming back, like this trend of baking. It's part of what I'm good at. You can ask my husband. When we first started dating and we even got married, I was not good at cooking. I could not cook. It was horrible. I never knew how to cook chicken. It was always his job. I burnt things. I was not good at cooking. And I've definitely gotten so much better, but my baking has always been great. I've always been a better baker than a chef. And I hope you see that in my videos. I hope you see how passionate I am about this, and I want to be that inspiration for you. I wasn't always like a pro at baking by any means, but I've always loved it, and I've slowly gotten better. So I hope that these videos can inspire you, can teach you something new, maybe teach you a new recipe, maybe you can learn a new tip from my videos and my content. Everyone remembers 2020 when there was zero bread in the stores. Everyone was in panic mode, buying out all the toilet paper, bottled water, non-perishable goods, and bread was one thing that just vanished from all stores. I feel like we should call 2020 the sourdough boom, or even just like the year of the sourdough, because I remember seeing all of my friends, my family getting into it, and it just became really trendy. I was a late bloomer. I actually started my sourdough journey in April of 2022, and I saw a lot of my friends and family that were consistently making it. It just looked incredible, and I wanted to know how to do that. I took a lot of inspiration from my cousin Anna and one of my friends, Emily. They're so good at making sourdough. I got their recipes, their process, I asked for advice, I was determined, and I failed very hard. I feel like every single loaf was turning out too dense. I was doing something wrong every time. Sometimes it tasted too salty or not salty enough. I was just failing so hard. And although I had those people in my life, I could ask them questions, but it wasn't the same as like visualizing it. I'm a visual learner, and I need to see somebody do something for me to remember it and implement it. So I wanted to create this channel as a way for you to visualize it, for me to break it down into understandable pieces, things that, you know, make sense for a beginner. One incredible thing about sourdough is that it's so easy to digest. I know a lot of friends and family who have gluten intolerances, and it's becoming harder and harder to eat bread because their body just can't process it or can't digest it. One awesome thing about sourdough is that the ferment time, the bulk fermentation process, and the cold proofing process breaks down a lot of the gluten within sourdough and makes it a lot easier to digest. It's a lot healthier, it has a lot of nutrients and enzymes in it that are really great for our body. It has great bacteria, which just helps your gut in general. So more fermented foods are actually better for your gut. It's super easy to make. Like I said, you can fit it into your schedule, and it's super simple ingredients. If you look at store-bought bread, you'll notice that there's 12, 15 ingredients in it, and half of the things you probably don't even know what they mean. They're full of seed oils that are really hard for our bodies to process and digest. There's a lot of preservatives in store-bought bread. I actually bought store-bought bread a couple months ago, and I probably won't do it again just because I can make my own sandwich loaves and my own sourdough. But I left that bread on the counter for 2 weeks, and we only ate a few pieces of it, and there was zero mold, which is a problem. Sourdough bread goes bad within 5 days if you don't freeze it, and you'll start to see mold really fast because there's no preservatives. So you just know that whatever they're putting in store-bought bread, it's not easy for our bodies to break it down if mold doesn't even want to eat it. And you can buy organic sourdough bread from the store. There are very few bakeries and very few stores that would sell you actual sourdough bread. A lot of stores, they put the sour flavor into it, and they don't actually follow the bulk fermentation process or that cold proofing process that breaks down the gluten. So you're basically getting what you would get in any other bread loaf if you're buying store-bought sourdough. I know there's some exceptions to that, but oftentimes it's not real sourdough. So it's better to make your own if you can, and I want this channel to be a place where you feel empowered to do that, regardless of how busy you are. I want you to be able to fit it into your schedule and feel good about what you're feeding your family. Another awesome thing about sourdough is it's so versatile. You can use it in almost any recipe. Any baked good could be made with sourdough. I'm serious. I looked up a recipe pretty much for anything that I like to make, and I found a recipe that you can use sourdough with. It essentially replaces the active dry yeast in a lot of recipes. Sometimes you follow a different process, but a lot of these recipes could be bulk fermented, which can process a lot of the gluten out of it, which makes it healthier and a lot easier for our bodies to digest. I actually quit making sourdough for 6 months when we were getting ready to move to Florida. I just couldn't keep up with it, and I ended up killing my starter because I just wasn't maintaining it correctly. And once I moved, I decided, you know what, I'm gonna give it another try, and instead of just making sourdough bread, I want to experiment with other things. And I'm so glad I did, because I was getting so burnt out on just regular sourdough bread. I started experimenting with inclusions, bagels, muffins, cookies, brownies, pizza dough. I just started adding it to a lot, just kind of fell in love with it. And so this whole year, I've been so passionate about making all of these recipes that I decided to create this channel as a way for me to share those recipes and inspire others to get into it, and maybe even try something different. Because I just had the misconception in my head at the beginning that all you can do is make sourdough loaves with it. There's nothing else. And then after I got into it and started researching and looking at Pinterest, I was like, wow, you can make so much with sourdough. If you made it to the end, thank you so much for watching. Your engagement means the world to me, and I hope to see you on my other social channels, including Instagram and TikTok. I want to inspire you. I want to make this less scary. I know that sourdough, it seems overcomplicated and daunting, but it doesn't have to be. So I hope that this channel gets you into it and just makes it easier for you. Thanks so much. We'll see you next time.